The moment she get those chills when the king saw the hill.
It's not that pale. I'm pale.
No, I'm more pale than you.
You're relatively, you mean?
You're black.
Shit.
I
forgot about that.
I'm sorry.
I forgot about African American.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But my dad was born in 1924. Been around the Bay Area, and the Bay is known for weird, interesting characters.
Yes.
Do you have any in your family?
I do. I'll tell you about it in a minute.
I have one in my family that I feel like his story needs to be told.
Okay.
It's my Uncle Donnie. He was my dad's older brother. He was roughly 2 years older than my dad, born in like 1920, 1922.
Yeah.
And he was just the kind of guy who, he was just in pain.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, like the tears of a clown?
Yeah.
He would always try to be defense mechanism, like overcompensate and be always, he never took anything serious. Everything was a joke. I'd be like, hey, Uncle Donnie. He'd be like, hey. And, you know, you could tell that wasn't really what he felt inside. He was just a strange character. You know, he was a merchant seaman traveling. He got pussy, but he never had like a real relationship.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do because my grandma was overly protective mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And after my grandpa was murdered, remember we talked about that? It's so sad. He had got married when he was around 20, so this must have been the 40s, right before the war. You know, they grew up in the Depression.
Yeah.
So it was like the family was tight-knit. They've been through a lot. And so I could see what psychological things may have been going through my grandma's mind. But when he got married to the love of his life, secretly behind his back, my grandma annulled the marriage. And back then, you could do that as a parent all the way up to a certain age.
Like you cancel it out.
Canceled it. And it broke his heart forever. And shortly after, he went to the war, and he was just never the same. You know how you play characters in improv or acting or comedy? He was just a walking character. You know, you would play him. One birthday, he would give me $100. The next birthday, he would give me a bag of peanuts. It was strange. He ended up dying of a stroke in the 80s. You have an interesting uncle too.
He grew up with my dad in the like 50s, right?
Yeah.
He's like 3 years older. My dad's kind of similar to you.
Yeah.
And you know, his mom died. My grandma when they were like 4. They lived in like southeastern Texas, you know, Louisiana. And his dad's super badass. Anyway, long story short, his dad like got sick of him. For various reasons, and he disowned him when he was 9. Disowned.
What do you mean by disowned?
Legally disowned him. Like somehow you could do that back then.
What?
So he was he never wanted to talk to him or see him again. And my dad and my granddad would be driving a car and see him. He was living in cars like out in the woods and stuff, like on his own when he was 9. So. Yeah, and he didn't go to school or anything.
That's
and then sad. Yeah, it's like ridiculous. And then when he was older, a little like a teenager, he got put in juvie.
Was he put in juvie because he committed crimes, or because he just didn't he wanted somewhere to sleep?
Okay, so along comes the Vietnam War, and when he's like 17, they're drafting people, and he goes and signs up for it. Like as soon as he's 18, and he goes.
Because he had nothing else to do.
He had nothing else to do, and he goes, well, okay, it's a job, right? I guess. So he goes off to the war. And goes through all kinds of serious shit. You know, African American soldiers, even in Vietnam, will get put in the front of the battle lines, right? Right? Just like they've always done in war. He saw a bunch of bad shit when he was over there, messed him all up. And when he came home, he was a wreck, and his family still didn't have a family.
And your dad was probably, younger, so he was probably still a kid in high school.
He was in this battle in Vietnam, though, where his entire platoon's like 100 people got wiped out in an ambush, and he got shot in the back of the head, was lying face down, and they thought he was dead. So he survived. So he got some medal, some Purple Heart or whatever, right? Which they give you for getting shot in the back of the head, I guess. Right? Like that's a brave thing to do. But he comes back from the war after this injury, rehabs, and then he doesn't have anything else to do. He can't go live with my dad and granddad because the granddad doesn't know him still. And he enlists for the war again, in spite of having gotten shot and seen all this bad shit. Yeah, he goes, and it was a mess. I won't even tell you all the stories. It was a mess what he did when he saw there. So finally he comes back. He gets hired to work at the White House as a guard. Like, looks good. Yeah. A vet, right, working at the White House. So he meets this older African-American woman living on the streets in D.C., and he's like, I'm going to help her out. He also met this had some biracial kids.
Okay.
He said, "Can you help my friend here who's living on the streets?" But then he finds out this woman isn't homeless. She's just lost her marbles, and she's wandering around DC living on the street, and she owns not one house, but like tons of properties in the DC area.
Wow.
Yeah. So he helps her out. Turns out she's got no kids. After all the shit he's been through in his life, when this woman dies, this older African American woman from DC, she leaves him everything, and suddenly he's a millionaire.
What a story.
What a story. And he winds up buying a ranch that he still lives on today. So the rest of his life he had money. That's my Uncle Tommy, man.
Funniest guy you know.
Now he's really sick. He's been sick for a long time. He got cancer from Agent Orange over in Vietnam.
Whoa. But I heard I read an article that they won the case, so all those soldiers who got it are getting compensated.